All right, when we're talking about texture, frottage is just kind of a different way to say it. So you might be able to hear that or see that in a different way. What we're going to be doing is obviously shading fabric on this one to kind of help you out. So by looking at the picture, typically what we've done in the past is we put the lights down. But because I have white paper and because the lightest is the lightest gray, I have a French gray that I'm working with. I have a green. I have a cool gray and a warm gray. So I'm thinking that this French gray is going to be really hard to see on my white paper. So I'm actually going to hit the medium first. So let's take the medium color, and I'm just going to draw a small portion of it. I'm going to try to get the stitching in and part of the fold. So I'm just going to put the stitching right down kind of off to the side here. So if you want to just draw like a little line where the stitching center is, because that's really dark. And then you're going to take, you're noticing that right next to that line, it's a little lighter here where your fabric bumps up and then you're stitching. So I'm going to leave that alone, and I'm actually going to shade much similar to what I would do with a just a regular graphite pencil. So I'm here and leaving this white for now, and just really lightly putting my medium gray down. You guys are noticing there's a bunch of texture onto the fabric. So what I usually like to do is get a base going before I even add the texture to it. And then I'm noticing it's getting a little lighter as I come away from that area. I'm going to go ahead and put the medium throughout that spot. And then I know that that's really dark, and then I see a light again, and then the stitching on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and put the medium here. And again, I'm working around the lights this time because my lightest color is very similar to my paper, and I won't be able to see it. So I'm going to work around the light areas actually. There's kind of a highlight right here. So I'm going to leave that paper white for now, and I'll end up adding the French gray in that spot. So I'm just going to kind of come around just like I would a regular pencil, and just kind of press and lift around where the darks and the mediums are. So the medium pencil is going where the darks and the mediums are, and I'm kind of working around where those brighter highlights are. Okay, once I do that, I'm actually going to even go into the dark one. So I'm going to take the darkest pencil, and right through here, I can see that it's shaded. So I'm going to do kind of a crisp line, but then I'm going to lift and kind of fuzz the edge there. Now, I don't know if I can get any closer, but it's pretty tiny. It gets a little crazy when it comes to adding your details. It's very time consuming, but that's what is going to give you that wow factor. So as I'm shading, I am kind of gesturing some of that texture because I'm looking at the fabric and it's not a crisp edge. That dark kind of floats in there a little bit. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. So pretend I went all the way down. For the sake of the demo, I'm just going to maybe do this top part. And then I'm going to take my medium and kind of fade that out a little bit too with the medium. And if you guys are noticing, the warm gray is kind of like a brown. It's got like a little brown in it. I'm going to move this medium gray, same thing. I'm going to kind of texturize the edge there. The initial shading was just to kind of get it laid out, but now I'm going to texturize that little section here. I have to be really careful because there is some white stitching right through here, and I don't want to lose the white stitching. If I get all of my gray around there, I'm not going to be able to get the white back. So one way to take care of that issue is to take your dark, which I can see that I've got more of a darker edge here, but I'm going to kind of almost like tap the pencil in there. That's going to create some texture and kind of fade it a little bit. I'm going to end up working around the stitching. So basically, when you're thinking about working with fabric, you have your basic lights and shading, and then when you go back, you're going to end up adding that texture. So I'm working around the stitching. So see how I'm drawing around to create the stitch marks? Again, very, very time consuming. I'm trying to rush. So I'm working around so that I can create those stitches here. This is the highlight of where the fabric goes. So let's go ahead and grab the French gray or your other gray, your lightest gray, and I can kind of wiggle the light gray in. And because it's the light color, it also kind of melts in a little bit. And you can kind of tick mark your stitching back because the highlights are the same color as the stitching. So you guys can kind of see how you can work that. Let's go ahead and take the dark pencil, and I can see where there's dark here. I'm going to show you real quick how to add. I'm going to dust some of the dark on here. I'm going to show you how to add texture onto the fabric. And then with the rest of the time, you guys can finish on your own and try to see if you can get more of the texture coming down. So I'm going to throw this here where I see the fold. And the fold has this bright white edge to it. And then it gets darker again. So let's crisp up that edge with the dark pencil. I'm going to leave that white. And then I'm going to fade it this way. I'm not pressing hard at all. I'm just really dusting it on. So again, the idea is just to get some of the basic shadows and things on first, and then you can enhance them to be able to come back and add the texture. So I've got the basic shading on. Again, I'm just kind of focusing up here on this just top corner. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my sharpener and like really, really sharpen like perfect point. And once you get some of the basic shading down, you can actually take your pencil and you can draw the texture in by lines. So the lines are darker in the darker spots and they might fade away. Take the direction of the weave of the fabric. I'm going to sharpen this around my stitching. Again, very time consuming, but it looks so good if you do it right. So the tip of the pencil just broke off, so I got to sharpen it again. And then I can see the grain here. It doesn't hit the highlight too much, so I'm going to go really, really soft and turn the grain. So you guys can see here how the fabric weave is starting to bend and fold and move over the shadows that are already there. So that goes there. And then if I look real close, it almost looks like a pattern of brick. So these little lines don't quite match up. So you guys can see how I'm kind of lightly drawing the texture over the top then. So basically when you're working with your texture, do your light shading and your light values first. Then you can take a super, super sharp pencil and start adding those areas over. If I wanted to, I can take my lightest area, my lightest gray, and I can actually come back and kind of fill those in a little bit here and add the highlight here. And it'll start to look realistic the more times you kind of go back and detail it out.